Stigma is a term that describes negative and stereotypical thoughts, attitudes, and feelings towards an individual or a community based on specific traits like gender, race, sexual orientation, or HIV status. Discrimination is when someone makes a decision or behaves in a certain way that produces a negative consequence for people they hold stigma towards. Essentially, stigma is the thoughts and feelings held, and discrimination is when the stigma is acted upon.
The stigma and discrimination associated with HIV today can be traced back to the fear surrounding HIV in the early 1980s. In June 1981, the US Center for Disease Control reported that 5 young, previously healthy gay men contracted an extremely rare lung infection and subsequently died. This was the first official report of what is now known as AIDS. Over the next few weeks, an increasing number of such cases and rare infections surfaced, disproportionately affecting certain groups. In these days, HIV and AIDS was also referred to as the 4H disease, which referred to the 4 groups which seemed to be disproportionately affected: homosexual men, heroin users, haemophiliacs, and Haitians. This exacerbated the stigma already on these vulnerable groups.
At the time, there was a lack of knowledge about how HIV was transmitted, with many believing that HIV could be transmitted from sharing drinks, kissing, and even casual contact with a person living with HIV. This created fear of people living with HIV due to the extreme panic about acquiring the virus. It also created false beliefs about people living with HIV. For example, many believed that acquiring HIV was a result of personal irresponsibility or immorality. By the late 1980s, there was a scientific consensus that transmission required blood-to-blood contact. Despite this, fear was still rampant, and the discrimination that resulted was overwhelming. A well-known case was that of Ryan White, a young man who acquired HIV from a blood transfusion. Once his diagnosis was made public, students and teachers signed a petition encouraging Ryan's school to ban him from returning. When he was able to return to school, he was viciously bullied and made to use separate bathrooms and utensils. Ryan and his family were forced to relocate when a bullet was fired through their living room window.
In Australia, gay men were banned from dentists and evicted from their homes. New South Wales Police called for a ban on random breath testing and insisted on being issued with plastic gloves due to fear that saliva could transmit HIV. HIV-positive people were also banned from flying on planes. Today, stigma and discrimination still impact the lives of people living with HIV. In 35% of countries with data about HIV, over 50% of HIV-positive people reported experiencing discriminatory attitudes. These attitudes can manifest through family rejection, rejection from possible sexual partners, disadvantages in the workplace, and internalized stigma which can negatively affect mental health. Legal discrimination is also still an issue. Today in Australia, any individual who has had sexual contact with a man who's had sex with other men within the last 12 months is not allowed to donate blood, despite the fact that all blood is screened for HIV.
In order to end the stigma surrounding HIV, we need to have open, honest, and positive conversations about HIV. We encourage everyone to educate themselves, think before they speak, and proactively support people living with HIV. To help you out, we're going to give you a couple of examples of positive ways to respond when someone tells you they're HIV positive.
Thanks for confiding in me and trusting me enough to share your status.
While I may not know the right thing to say to you in this moment, please know that I am here to listen and that I care.
Thank you for telling me. I really appreciate your trust in me. How can I best support you?
Let's explore appropriate language when discussing HIV and AIDS. First, we'll show you some language that is considered incorrect or stigmatizing. Then we'll present more appropriate and less stigmatizing terms. Feel free to pause the video as each new phrase is presented in order to think about and discuss possible alternatives.
Instead of AIDS virus or HIV virus, just say HIV or HIV/AIDS. There's no such thing as the AIDS virus. There is only human immunodeficiency virus, the virus that can cause AIDS when left untreated. The term HIV virus is redundant as the V in HIV stands for virus.
Instead of get AIDS or catch AIDS, say acquire HIV. AIDS can only develop from untreated HIV and isn't something you can catch.
The terms AIDS carrier, AIDS infected, or AIDS victim are highly stigmatising and offensive to many people living with HIV. Additionally, people do not necessarily suffer because they have HIV. Instead, say HIV positive or person living with HIV.
Instead of saying innocent victims, say people with medically acquired HIV or children with HIV. Innocent victims is frequently used to describe children with HIV or people with medically acquired HIV. The term implies that people who have acquired HIV in other ways are guilty of some wrongdoing and deserve to be infected with HIV.
Thank you for watching our Talking Positive video series. Don't forget to check out the resource sheet uploaded on our website, which will link you to a number of other organisations, videos and print materials with more information about this very important topic. Feel free to leave comments below or get in touch with the Yet Project via our Facebook page. See you later!